I'm going into a webinar. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Okay, let's see.
I show live.
Okay, perfect.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar Wednesday. Today, we're going to talk about egg donation and how that has to do with surrogacy and how does it work? You know, why do people need egg donation? Should I be considering egg donation if I'm an intended parent? These are questions that we have had asked before, and we wanted to tell you a little bit about how the process works. And if you were to encounter the need for any sort of gamete donation, there is no problem. We know what to do and we know how to help you out. And this is just a general overview of, you know, if this happens, what's next? What are the next steps? And with me today is Tracy Armato. She is our surrogacy advisor at Omega Family Global. And she has been privy to many cases where this happens. So welcome, Tracy, and tell us a little bit about how this works.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, obviously, the decision to work with an egg donor is a personal decision that the intended parents will make. And there could be several different reasons that a parent would choose to use an egg donor opposed to the intended mother's eggs. The first one that comes to mind, of course, would be a same-sex couple. Obviously, they're going to need an egg from somewhere. It might be that the intended mother may have had some medical issues or medical concerns where medications may have made it where her eggs are not as viable. Age is a big factor. So really, there are many, many different reasons why a couple would choose or need the assistance of an egg donor in order to achieve the dream of having a family.
And when should an intended parent or a person who's looking into surrogacy, you know, even begin to consider the option of gamete donation? And when does this pop up?
Well, I mean, I think that can be different for everybody, for different situations. Again, obviously, if we are dealing with a same-sex couple, they're going to know from the very beginning that they're going to need an egg donor. So that might be the first place where they start is, well, we need to find an egg donor in order to create embryos. For a heterosexual couple, for instance, or even a single woman, it would just really depend on a few different things. If, for instance, part of the reason that she is looking for an egg donor might be something I've run into a few times is that she's had cancer in the past. So the chemotherapy is not good for the remaining eggs that she could have in her ovaries. Or for some women, they've had to have hysterectomies because of cancer or other medical circumstances. In that particular setting, I mean, that again would put them looking for an egg donor before even going to an IVF center, possibly, because that is something that they already know they need. For other couples, it would be that they go to the IVF center hoping to use the intended mother's eggs. And then through the testing of the intended mother, it comes to be that they might have a higher success rate working with an egg donor, or it might be that her eggs just are not going to be viable in producing a pregnancy, and they have to go with a donor.
I see. And how does that cycle, like that timeline, that cycle work for egg donation? What should someone be counting on time-wise?
Egg donor cycle is definitely much quicker than a surrogacy cycle. I would say that the majority of time in an egg donor cycle is literally finding the right donor. Depending on what the parents are looking for, that can be really easy or really difficult. And you know, it might be for some parents, they're looking for a particular look. They want the donor to have things that resemble the intended mom. For others, they want, you know, a higher education might be their largest criteria. For others, it could be something as simple as a favorite pastime that they have, and they want the donor to have that shared interest. So based on that, intended parents can come to Omega. We have donors available. They can look beyond Omega.
That's what I was going to ask. I mean, if let's say I come to a surrogacy with Omega, and it turns out that I go to the IVF clinic and they say, hey, Maria, you know what? Your eggs don't work and you're going to need an egg donor. So how do I go about it? I mean, do I have to do that through the same agency that I'm working my surrogacy through, or can I go find it elsewhere? Like, where do I begin?
Yes, the answer is yes. So we do have some egg donors. I would say that Omega's specialty really is surrogacy. We are very surrogacy focused. We do know how to run an egg donor cycle, an egg donation cycle. So I can help you with that, assuming that we have the right donor. There are literally thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of donors available out there. So parents might want to look at multiple agencies for their egg donor to find the right one. Again, it's going to depend on their criteria. If their criteria is very, very minimal, they want somebody blonde hair and green eyes who's taller than 5'3", well, then yes, we can most certainly help you. But the more specific their criteria becomes, now they want somebody blonde hair, green eyes, over 5'3" or over 5'8", who has a master's degree from an Ivy League school and loves to go horseback riding. If we don't have it, we can help connect them, or they can look at other agencies. It is not uncommon that their surrogate is with one agency and their donor is with another agency. And the donor cycle does happen very, very quickly. So once they pick their donor, they'll go into medical screening, much like a surrogate. That can be done literally the following month with her menstrual cycle. Then contracts for an egg donor are much smaller, much shorter in verbiage than a surrogate's. And from that point, they are going directly into an egg retrieval. And the egg retrieval process is literally 2 to 3 weeks. So from picking your donor to having your eggs retrieved is like no more than a 3-month window.
Understood. So if intended parents, or when have you seen that intended parents really look into egg donation? I mean, I would assume that if you're upper in age, you might want to automatically look into that versus going through the whole IVF cycle just to either save time, or maybe you just choose not to. Maybe it's just simpler to do an egg, to find someone who would donate. Now, I would venture to say that if you're going to look for an egg donor, you're probably going to look for someone that may look more like you. Like if I was looking for an egg donor, you'd want someone who maybe has black hair and brown eyes, and just so that the child may have some semblance or resemblance to me, the baby's mother, or the same, let's say, coloring, I guess, than the baby's father. So even if, you know, the father would provide his sperm for the baby.
Right.
And
And I
so,
think for a lot of parents, I mean, it can be varied upon a few different things. Age is a big one. You know, unfortunately, as women, we get the short end of the stick in the sense that we're born with our eggs. We don't get to produce new ones as we grow older. So our eggs get older with us. So,
right.
you know, the older you get, the less likely you are to achieve a successful pregnancy. I mean, I think we all know that, you know, they say after 35 that you are at a higher risk for genetic abnormalities.
Right.
Again, that's the eggs getting older. So as a couple, the intended parents, you know, they need to do some question asking and answers for themselves about, you know, whether it's worth the risk of the intended mom doing an egg retrieval in hopes of having a embryo that passes PGD, PGS, or it being, you know, a good grade embryo that can be successful at transferring into a surrogate, opposed to a donor who is between the ages of 21 and 29 in the prime of her fertility and will produce a much more high quality embryo with a higher success rate at embryo transfer. So it depends, you know, some people say, but I don't have the budget for an egg donor. That's why I'm going to provide the egg myself. And I understand that, but on the flip side, some parents will spend more trying to use their own eggs because mom might have to go through multiple egg retrievals in order to get an egg or an embryo rather that passes the genetic screening. Or they might go through multiple embryo transfers before they have a successful transplant into the surrogate. Whereas having the donor, yes, you have a higher expense out of the gate, if you will, but you also increase your success rate a great deal. So it really just depends on the parents and what, you know, what is really important to them.
Now it gets me thinking, maybe I should have, you know, had some egg retrieval when I was in my mid-20s and kept them there for
Maybe.
future.
I tell my daughters that all the time. I say at 29, we're going to harvest your eggs and we're going to freeze them to the side. They'll be there when you're ready.
No, and nowadays, I mean, with women in the professional fields, or you're just waiting a little bit more because, you know, your professional life is going so well, or your love life, everything is working out so well that you know, time passes and biological clocks don't work parallel to our lifestyle many times. So I honestly hadn't thought of that, but if I could go back in time, I would definitely do that.
Yeah.
Just
I
guess
have
for my own.
preached that to my daughters that, you know, there's no rush for anything in life because we now have this as an option. So get your education, put your career in order.
And if someone were to want to donate eggs, I mean, what do they have to do, or you know, how would they know if they're a good candidate? Some people, I've encountered some ladies who just don't want to have children, and they don't want to, you know, be a surrogate, but they do want to help someone who is going through infertility because, you know, they seem it's unfair for someone who wants to have children and can't. So they're thinking, well, maybe, you know, I'm young and you know, I fit the age bracket. So maybe that I can do. Maybe I can donate my eggs. What would they have to do? Who would they have to
So
approach?
they can reach out to us and we can get them to fill out an application and create a profile very similar to what a donor or a surrogate has. And the hard part about egg donation is that our donors, or it doesn't matter whose database, you sit in the database and you just kind of wait until a parent has selected you. And the egg donation is very personalized, meaning that you wait, and then once a parent says, oh, I like donor Maria, then you'd get a call from us saying, Maria, are you still available? Are you still interested in being an egg donor? And if you are, then we get the process started. For some donors, they will get called multiple times while being a donor. Other donors, and it's not anything that they've said, it's not, there's not any particular reason why, but some donors may not ever get a call, and then they time out at 20, at 30 years old.
Right. So that's something some people could do. They could choose to do something like this. And if you're not chosen, well, at least you had that intention, and that really means something to people.
Most certainly.
Who can't have children.
Yes.
Tracy, is there anything else you would like intended parents to know, or future egg donors to know about the egg donation process that you feel is important?
Certainly. Well, for future girls or young ladies, I should say, who are interested in becoming an egg donor, one of my best recommendations to you is apply for multiple donor databases, because we're going to call you and find out your availability anyways. So if you're already in a match, you would certainly be able to let us know that. And that would not harm anything. But it's kind of like, the more exposure you have to intended parents, the higher success you will have at being selected. So to just be on one donor database, you have less likelihood of being selected by intended parents than you would if you are on, say, 10 different databases.
And I have a question here. How much does egg donation cost? Like, how much does that add on to surrogacy costs?
So it will add about $30,000 to the expenses. That would be legal fees, the donor's compensation, the medications to the egg donor. And I'm adding the medications, but when you think about it, those same medications would be used for the intended mother. But generally speaking, that is a cost that you will, that has to be covered. There's genetic screening that happens to the donor to make sure that there aren't particular traits that are passed through. So a donor has to make sure that she doesn't have certain things, or that the father doesn't have them, that would then be passed to the child. It's the additional IVF expenses for the donor, psychological screening. So generally speaking, it's about $30,000 more working with an egg donor.
And I've also been asked where they can find more information on PGD testing, on the genetic testing that they do for the embryo. We do have a blog that was just written actually about this topic. It's on our website. So you can look at ofgsurrogacy.com and look for our blog sites, and you'll find that recent blog. So that you can find out a little bit more about what it is and what it entails, so that you can become more familiarized, right? And what happens with these PGD testing? Like, what does the result tell doctors when they do the testing?
So this is more of a question to a medical professional,
Understood.
the IVF physician,
Understood.
but I will tell you the general portion of it. So what the PGD PGS does, that stands for pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, or screening. So that's the D or the S. Same test, just depends on what IVF center calls it, whether it's diagnosis or screening. And it is testing the 24 chromosomes of the embryo. And when the embryo is developing, they take one of the outer cells, and I emphasize outer because a lot of people are like, well, what if that cell was important for developing the fetus? And one of the cells that they are taking, it's so early in the development that it is believed to be more like what would be a placenta cell opposed to an embryo cell. So that is then tested for the 24 chromosomes, and it tells you whether there are any abnormalities in those 24 chromosomes. 2 of the chromosomes are X and Y. So one of the pieces of information that people will do the PGD or PGS for is if they want to do family balancing and have specifically a male or female child as the outcome of their surrogacy or of their pregnancy. So with the PGD, PGS, they will know which of the embryos are male and which are female based on XY or XX.
Thank you, Tracy. And if I do ask these type of questions is because I know that you've been in the surrogacy industry for more than 20 years. So you know about these, and I understand that you're not a medical doctor, but in general terms, I know that you can guide both intended parents and surrogates as to, you know, and not to be worried about these tests, but it is important to have it done just so that you know what you're dealing with when, you know, as the process moves forward.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Tracy. Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for the questions, everybody. And remember that we do have Webinar Wednesday. It's not every Wednesday, but at least once a month. So we do have our events calendar on our website, and we also have it on social media. So please join us. And if you have questions, just let us know and we'll put something together for you, because we really want you to be informed when it comes to your family creation, and make sure that you feel safe and you feel excited about such a wonderful adventure. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.